Hey there, we're the West Slot Pirates and welcome to the show. We're here to share our thoughts on Northwestern athletics and college sports with thoughts and analysis from the visceral to the statistical. We run our tailgate with the red pirate flag flying high above as we give no quarter, especially the fourth. I'm Sam Walter.
And I am John Lacombe.
Scuzz is off today. A little peek behind the curtain. A lot of times all the time we record some of our previews well in advance, just because it's the summer and everyone's off on vacations. Scuzz is on vacation with his family right now, and we have a few episodes in the can that we were doling out in a little bit. John, you and I were going to jump on tonight to talk a little bit about Media Day, but
what could go wrong? We said,
yeah.
What?
I mean, I can think of one time that we had pre-recorded stuff that we actually did throw out, and that was 2 years ago.
Right.
With the
Exactly.
Yeah. But here, we're not going to be re-recording our Tulane preview, but a lot of what we said in that Tulane preview, at least on the offensive side, you're pretty much going to need to throw out because Tulane has found their answer at quarterback, and his name is Jake Retzlaff.
100%. And this is one of those things where, as we all know, because it's been a point of discussion in Northwestern Nation, Tulane very famously got Brendan Sullivan through the portal, and he's on their roster. They have a quarterback whose name is escaping me, who played for Ball State as a freshman and threw for a bunch of yards and then transferred to Tulane. It's kind of transfer palooza there. But for anyone who has
that's who Eric was saying was probably going to be starting for them,
right?
Until now.
Until now. And this is something, disabuse yourself of any other notion right now. Tulane just picked up a guy through the portal who was fourth in the Big 12 in total offense last year. He's just really good. And there is, for anyone who doesn't know, a ton of context here that is crazy. We don't need to go too deep into.
No.
But basically,
I mean, there are question marks. I mean, there's definitely some baggage that comes with Jake Retzlaff.
There is, and it's one of those things where there was a civil lawsuit filed against him. I think there's an important bit of context only in so much as there was a lawsuit. That lawsuit was filed about 2 months ago. It was dismissed about 1 month ago. But in the interim, between when it was filed and when it was dismissed, Jake Retzlaff admitted that he had violated the sexual conduct clause in BYU's honor code, namely just having sex, period, which has famously happened several other times at BYU.
Yeah.
And independent of anything relative to the lawsuit, based on previous track record, as soon as he admitted that, he was almost certainly not going to play this season for BYU.
I mean, he was facing a 7-game suspension.
Right. And I mean, truth be told, again, because the lawsuit existed for about a month and then was dismissed, the odds of him playing somewhere else were extremely high. And since that clearly wasn't going to be at BYU, he was going to go into the portal and he was going to land somewhere else. Now, we sure as heck didn't know it was going to be at Tulane. But from a football standpoint, he's coming in and, again, this is a guy who's fourth in the Big 12 in total offense last year. And you can look at the numbers, and the numbers are very good. They're not unbelievable, but they're very good. 2,900 yards passing last year, 20 TDs, 12 picks, another 400 yards rushing. And he was only sacked 18 times, partly because he's really good in the pocket. And so you can look at, he has 417 rush yards on, if you take out the sacks, really 82 carries. So he's carrying the ball a lot. They ran option looks with him. They ran design runs with him, but he's just good in the pocket. But this is the thing, and I've crushed a lot of Jake Retzlaff tapes since this news dropped in a really short amount of time, and there is no good news to be had here. This is the kind of guy it sucks to play against. If you follow Big Ten football and chiefly our rivalry with that school down south, Luke Altmaier is the direct comparison. They are super similar.
And this is Luke Altmaier now, not Luke Altmaier at Rutgers, right?
I would say Luke Altmaier, 75% of the way to where he is now. But
Okay.
to be clear, and we haven't previewed Illinois yet, and Scuzz is going to get to this. Is Luke Altmaier's arguably the most valuable player in the Big Ten right now. Not the best, but the most valuable player in the Big Ten.
Sure.
If you ignore Illinois football and you choose not to watch Illinois football, and if that's true, God bless you. Like, that's the exact way you should think. Peyton Ramsey is the comp. They are just super similar. And aside from the fact that you can look at all the numbers that Retzlaff put up at BYU running and throwing, and the fact that just from a raw volume standpoint, he solves so many problems for Tulane, and use all those as reasons he's going to play. He's going to be their starting quarterback because he's going to win the job. This dude is a dog. He is a guy who has never been anyone's first choice. He's gone to a couple, I think, community colleges, and then he went to BYU. He won the job at BYU and was awesome. This guy's 6 feet tall. He's not particularly big. He doesn't have a particularly strong arm. He doesn't throw a particularly great spiral. He's just got it. Like, it's just, you can watch him play, and it's just, you've had this guy. You've had a Peyton Ramsey before. You've had, from a mentality standpoint, a Dan Persa before, etc. Those guys were like, they can make 2 mistakes, and those mistakes can be brutal. And you're like, I don't care, we're riding with this guy, come hell or high water. Like, he's a dog. In the fourth quarter, this guy's going to be able to climb on my back. That's Jake Retzlaff. It sucks. It sucks. You want to hear from me, if you don't know, that this guy's like some 6'3", 6'4", cannon-armed pro prospect who's raw. Nope. He's not going to play in the pros. He's just an awesome college quarterback. And again, it's like, will Tulane ride with him? They're going to ride him until the wheels fall off. This team's whole problem is they turned over all their offensive personnel, and they don't have someone to hand the keys to. They're going to force the keys into his hand, and they're going to be like, do everything for us. And this guy played 13 games for BYU last year. Like, so it's bad news. It's yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, and I don't really want to go too deep into it, but like the way the whole transfer happened, it was, he withdrew from BYU in like the middle of the term, like he hadn't finished the quarter yet, and like it was out of the transfer portal window, so he wasn't actually able to enter the transfer portal, which is why he's walking on at Tulane.
Right. And then there's this whole other piece to this too that is just, it's wild and it's fascinating, where it's like, part of the reason he doesn't need that scholarship money is he, at least up until recently, has an NIL deal with Manischewitz, amongst other places, because he's one of the chosen few, Sammy. He's a member of the tribe. And it's funny, I was thinking that even had all this not happened and he had simply announced that he was transferring to Tulane, there would be a legitimate reason for him to be like, apart from football, 40% of the Tulane student body is Jewish. I identify with that. And if anyone would take an issue with making a transfer like that, keep in mind, 75% of the roster of the team he just left is constructed completely based on faith. Yeah. Those guys are there because they made a faith-based choice. So it's like, you rarely hear that about Jewish athletes, but it would 100% make sense. But regardless, he's really good. And again, you think of a Peyton Ramsey, you think of a Luke Altmaier. Now, you can look at it sub 60% completion percent, and that's not with throwing the ball downfield a ton. He doesn't throw the prettiest ball, and he gets overconfident, and he will force throws. And he has forced a couple. Yeah.
He had almost 3,000 yards last year, 20 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. So,
and half of those interceptions, at least, were brutal interceptions. There were a couple that I want to say came in, and now I'm looking. I want to say it was in the Holy War against Utah, I think, or it was against Arizona State. But there was one where on back-to-back plays, he missed what would again been the game-winning play and then threw like a soul-crushing pick on the next play. Against Colorado, a game which they won handily, he made a couple horrific throws that were picked off. 3, actually. But I think one was on a 2-point conversion, so only 2 went on the books. But they were all egregious throws. when he's not making plays like that, which is maybe like, let's say 2 times a game or less, he's lights out. He just is lighting you on fire. He does everything well. And he's the kind of guy where, again, we talk about like when you play Luke Altmaier and it's like, well, geez, we'll compress the pocket. And even if we don't get to him, and it's like, some guys that works. Then there's guys like Altmaier where he's like, well, I'll just extend for 30 seconds. If you're going to give me 30 seconds to throw the ball, I'll find someone eventually, because his pulse never gets above whatever. That's what this guy is like. And again, we'll get to it when we get into media days. You're hearing all this and you're like, this is sure a lot of bad news coming out of that, if you've listened to it, our now outdated Tulane preview, where there still wasn't a lot of great news in that one to begin with. And this is like a huge missing piece for them. I think the thing you have to remember, though, and this goes to where we're going to go when we talk about media days, etc., is you listen to all this and you're like, oh shoot, well, our defense is going to have to step it up. Well, how is our defense going to solve this? We were already trying to think, all right, our defense needs to do X, needs to do Y, needs to do Z. Give our defense the respect of not heaping that all on them. What's going to happen here is we got to score more points now. And media day should have reminded us all that we have a potential avenue or avenues to score a lot more points than we did last season, to lift that offense that was just such a disaster for so much of the year last year. And that's the thing, is like, Jake Retzlaff's numbers were awesome last year. You know whose 2023 numbers were even better? Preston Stone's numbers were even better. And it's like, yeah, and then that's the thing, is like, you can't, don't fall down the trap of being like, how the hell do we solve Tulane now? We're just going to have to be a better football team on both sides of the ball, and we just may have the pieces to do that.
You mentioned Preston Stone as we pivot to talk about media day. It's interesting. Tulane has said all 4 guys are going to be competing, but we all know that it's going to be Retzlaff. And like,
keep in mind, there are no entrenched guys here. The other guys have only arrived 1 to 2 months ahead of Preston
exactly.
of Retzlaff.
But and we're used to this, like, cloak and dagger. Oh, we're not naming the quarterback. Guess what, guys? We don't have to do that this year.
No.
Because at media day, David Braun came straight up and said Preston Stone is our starter. And, let's not beat around the bush here. He was the starter coming out of spring ball. He's the starter now, and that's where we're at. And we knew that was what was going to be happening, especially with the news that we'd heard rumblings of, but it was confirmed today that Jack Lausch is giving up football to play baseball full time. Good for him. You know what? I mean, that was kind of his better sport in high school. He was Mr. Baseball for the state of Illinois, right? And
big time.
Yeah. So he made the move. Played baseball last year, and all best wishes to him. I mean, he played his ass off for the football team last year, and he had a pretty decent season for baseball too. So, he sees his future on the diamond, and honestly, I don't blame him. If he's not going to be a starter in the NFL, the money is in baseball.
Yeah, I mean, this is like someone on Twitter today. We were talking about this on Twitter, and someone kind of jumped in and was like, they did Lausch dirty here, like, he deserved better than this, etc. And I'm just like, we have heard a lot of smoke about this for a long time, like, relative to like, is this actually happening? Is he leaving? And in this entire process of us like reading the tea leaves here, never have we heard anything other than just like, he's probably going to move on to baseball. Everyone understands the decision. It makes perfect sense. He is incredibly liked, as has been well described, whatever. This is like this is everyone being like, go do your thing. Like, you're a great contribution to the baseball team. You have a huge future in baseball. And not unrelated, we have Preston Stone. It's like this. It's the path of least resistance for everybody. That makes perfect sense for Lausch. So it's like, right, of course he would do that. And by the way, he's still contributing to Northwestern athletics in a major way. Like, do you like baseball? Do you like baseball? This guy's awesome at baseball. But but yeah, but getting the news about Stone, and I think
Again,
Stone,
this is not a
yeah,
surprise. Like
right, no, and he's at media day.
exactly.
So,
I mean,
right.
the first quarterback that Northwestern's had at media day since who, Thorson?
We were talking about this with Matt Shelton, of Wildcat Report a little while back, and he was crunching back, and yeah, notably Ramsey was not one that year, even though he was this big guy who had transferred in. And I think, yeah, you may have to go all the way back to Thorson to get somebody. But Stone, I mean, he was in media day today. You know, we listened to him talk to Big Ten Network. He's just the guy who just everything, yes sir, no sir. He's really like self-effacing, really like humble, impeccable manners. It's like Sam, as you were saying, and you're someone who's worked a lot in
Yeah,
Texas.
this is like the prototypical Texas guy. I mean, off the field, mild mannered, super polite. I bet he's just a dog when he gets on the field.
Right, and that's the thing. So it's like and you know, it was reminding us, and this it all folds into the Retzlaff stuff and and everything. But one of the wild, bizarre things is Preston Stone, where everyone we're used to thinking, it's almost used to thinking of like, well, he played in 2023 and then was amazing, and then he didn't play last year. No, he very much did play last year. He played at the start of the season. He had this star-crossed start to the season, and his last start was against BYU and Jake Retzlaff. And because I was crushing so much Retzlaff tape, it almost led me back to the whole Stone piece because I couldn't help but watch like the final piece of the Stone puzzle and the moment when SMU made the change. And we've talked about this before at length, but I don't know if I've ever specifically talked about this piece. So I had watched that SMU Nevada game 2 weeks earlier live. And that was me knowing very little about Preston Stone or SMU's roster. I just happened to watch that. It was one of the first games of the season. And the overriding thing that entire game was I was like, the right side of his line's getting caved in by a bad football team. They can't protect this guy at all. It's insane. And then with a couple deep ball magic throws, he basically pulled SMU out of that at the very end. But in the first quarter of that game against BYU, Preston Stone gets pinatted like 3 times. And 2 of those are on 3-man rushes. BYU rushes 3 guys, 3 SMU guys don't block anyone, and Stone gets lit up. And basically, you arrive at the point where it's like, at that point, I would have put in the fast quarterback. Like, they were going to get this guy murdered out there. He's like, Stone is like not immobile, but he's not lightning fast, and their offensive line was getting obliterated. So it's like, if you look and you're trying to find some deep reason for why the quote unquote unbelievable guy that we got didn't play, it's because they were getting pinatted and they had a good guy who was really fast, and then they switched to the guy who was really fast because he could get away from all the guys that they weren't blocking. And that there's no rocket science. That's why they made the decision. And then Jennings played well, so they didn't switch back. But it's like you go and you watch that, and then you remember, and it's like I mentioned earlier, Peyton Ramsey. Jake Retzlaff. I don't know if Altmaier falls into this too, but like you talk about a Ramsey, you talk about a Retzlaff, and it's guys where you're like, this was nobody's first choice guy. These guys had to fight and win a job every place they were because there was always someone who was a bigger recruit or a higher profile who people wanted to start over them. And I think as Northwestern fans, we really gravitate towards that experience because it's like, we always get the underdog guy, whether it be like a Dan Persa who was really under recruited, and then he got the Notre Dame offer like really late, right? But he stayed with Northwestern. And guys like, we really identify with guys like that. Preston Stone isn't that. Preston Stone is a guy who was a god quarterback in Texas for his entire life. Like we rarely get this guy. Stone is when Stone and Jake Retzlaff face off for the second time in their college careers, the one with a potential pro future is Preston Stone. This has been known his entire life. He's got a god arm, and always has, and played high-level football in Texas. The only reason he didn't go to like Alabama or wherever is because he's super loyal to SMU and was committed to SMU, I think, for most of the time he was in high school. So it's a period of adjustment, but I would say that, instead of breaking your brain trying to find some defensive super solution to this massive quarterback upgrade Tulane just got, just think about, we have a really awesome quarterback on our roster now, and we're going to get to watch him do a lot of cool things. So yeah, at Media Day, that was salve for the wound for me, being reminded of that.
Yeah. So Stone was there, Anto Saka was there, Joe Himon was there, the player representatives. I mean, Braun was not PJ Fleck, who talked the entire 15 minute without even taking a question.
I turned on my TV X amount before the players got on and was like, oh God, all right, here we go. I got to listen to Fleck.
But I mean, like, no earth-shattering news. I mean, the biggest one is that Stone was named starting quarterback. Lausch is going to baseball, which honestly is kind of as big of news as we've had from Media Day in a while. But I mean, again, none of these things were things that we weren't expecting to happen. It's just maybe not expecting to hear at Media Day. But I mean, what was your takeaway after seeing what Braun had to say in his piece, and then back with the players? I mean, what do you take away from that?
A lot of little pieces. One, circling back to Stone, and we talked about this before the pod, like, Braun discovered Stone's tape. All of us in our own way discovered Stone's 2023 SMU tape at some point or another. For David Braun, it happened slightly earlier, because when they were doing their prep for Duke last year, Duke's OC had come from SMU, so they were crushing SMU tape to get used to that offense. And he's just watching Preston Stone through. I was looking at it today on Sports Reference. Stone's adjusted yards per attempt in 2023 was over 10 yards an attempt.
Holy crap.
That's insane. That's intercontinental ballistic missiles. So Stone's watching this guy and being like, Braun's watching this guy and being like, oh my gosh, this guy's tape's amazing. And then, was like, fast forward, was like, he's in the portal, get that guy. Right. And then they got him. So that was a great piece of news. And then there's like little tea leaves things. Stone, I was almost wondering if like Stone said a touch too much here, or if it was just me reading too much. But Stone was like, Joe Himon, he can play receiver, he can play running back. And I was like, well, I know he can play receiver, but we've never actually seen that. I'd love to see it.
Well, I mean, Braun did say, we're going to get the ball in Joe's hands. We're excited for Lujan to find different ways to utilize Joe this year. I mean,
right.
And everyone's saying it without saying it.
Right. So it's like, whatever. I want him on the field somewhere. If you want to put him at wide receiver, great. He needs to be on the field as much as possible. And obviously, Komolafe gets mentioned in the same breath with Porter and Himon anytime they talk about the backs. And obviously, Scuzz was on this. Like, Komolafe is a bigger back, but he was really hurt at the start of the season. And the more he can shoulder some of the between the tackles load, and the more Himon can do whatever else as a pass catcher or whatever, so much the better. So that was another piece. Also, Himon looked absolutely ripped sitting up there. I don't know if that guy's just been like eating Wheaties and been in the gym like this time, but Himon looked like he wants to be an every down football player up there, which is awesome to see. And then Saka, and some of these are some of the bigger things. So Dave Revson, who was up there, Northwestern's finest, delivered a couple of pieces of information that I did not know and were kind of mind-blowing, even though they both make perfect sense. One is that The Athletic currently has Saka as a first-round draft pick next year, and the other is that Saka's never started a football game for Northwestern.
Which is just wild. It's wild to think about that.
Which is wild. It goes to the whole thing, though, and we've talked about this for several years now, of like how like publications like Phil Steele have no idea what to do with Saka because of the way our defensive line is constructed and the fact that we play so many guys. And when we get into the Northwestern preview at the end of the summer, we'll go really deep on this. I don't want to go deep on it here, but the shortest thing is to say, if Northwestern could find one impact every down defensive end who was really valuable in the run as well as the pass, it would solve about 10 different problems, not only for this defensive line, but for this defense. And the shortest path between 2 points in this situation is Anto Saka, like, particularly if he's evaluated as a future NFL prospect. And Revson, to his credit, went right at this. And Saka was like, yeah, 100% agree. I've gained 15 pounds, and I'm working with Coach Smith on this, and the goal is to be an every down defensive end. And it's like, from your lips to God's ears, like that's exactly what we need. We need you to be a future NFL first round draft pick, every down defensive end who is helping us with the run as much as with the pass. That will solve so many problems. So yeah, there was from a football standpoint and a personnel standpoint, those were all good things to hear. And it was kind of reminding yourself, oh yeah, we do have this monster at defensive end anchoring our deep defensive line. We do have and Braun talked about this too, saying there are really good guys on our offensive line who are not going to start this year. And if you do the math, you can circle certain guys and be like, man, that guy might not start, and I know he's good. And that speaks to just how much the depth of the unit has increased since last year.
And as we know, depth on the offensive line is critical.
Right, exactly. Those people, everyone's not going wire to wire, not for every game, certainly. And right, you need those bodies. But I mean, we'll talk about all that too, but it's like you remind yourself, I think we're so used to being like, oh, how do we plug this hole? How do we plug this hole? Oh, how are we going to deal with Tulane? All good questions. Tulane's going to be a really good football team. But there is just a lot going on that offensive side of the ball right now that's really exciting. And I think it's right to be like, you know what? We have a guy with an NFL arm back there who lit the college football world on fire in 2023 and was basically pulled from SMU kind of just as like a freak occurrence. Like, honestly, if BYU hadn't been on their schedule, who knows how things unfold differently. So regardless, worked out awesome for us. There's nothing but possibilities for us. We're going to have to score points to beat this good Tulane team, probably a bunch. But I'm feeling a lot better about our chances to do that.
If you or a loved one is seriously injured by someone else's negligence, hire Kent Simpson of the Simpson Law Group. After over a decade prosecuting murder cases in Chicago, Simpson opened his own firm focused on wrongful death and personal injury cases. He specializes in car, truck, motorcycle, boat, and other transportation accidents, as well as construction accidents, medical negligence, slip and falls, product liability, and more. Millions recovered for clients, no fee unless he wins. The Simpson Law Group, compassion, empathy, and vigorous advocacy. Go to simpsonlawgroup.com or call 312-332-2107 for a free consultation, and go Cats. Finally, tonight, I wanted to mention, and this is news that we just saw a couple days ago, and it's interesting, but also kind of a bummer. And that's the news that True and You, the NIL collective that had been headlined and run by Jacob Schmidt since its inception, is shutting down. And NIL and the House settlement. I mean, everything has changed, and continues to change. And now the athletic department is in charge of fundraising and being able to fund NIL packages for the players. But I mean, we would be remiss if we didn't stop for a second and just acknowledge the yeoman's work that Jacob Schmidt and the rest of the team at True NU had put in to get Northwestern to where they are now, which going into it, Northwestern was the back of the pack when it came to NIL. And Jacob led the way, kicking and screaming, the athletic department, pulling by their teeth, getting everything going and getting Northwestern to a place where they're able to keep Brooks Barnheiser another year. They're able to
helping with Boo,
able to get Boo back. Exactly. Another year of Boo, another year of Martinelli. And that's just on basketball side. I mean, the football side of things too. I mean, we don't know all the numbers, and we're never going to know all the numbers, but Northwestern was no longer the back of the pack when it came to NIL, and that is completely all on Jacob Schmidt, and just it's incredible.
And again, in a second, we'll contextualize this because NIL and the current landscape was a big talking conversation at Media Days, and Braun talked about it. But even to say that Schmidt led the way for Northwestern in this space doesn't capture it, because as you said, it's not like he was getting a ton of support from the athletic department at the time that he did this. And this was not a situation where everyone was like, someone's got to do this. Like, Jacob Schmidt, you're the man for the job. That's like, he kind of was like, someone has to do this, and I'm going to have to do it. And as I recall, I mean, I could be misremembering, but I think he had to go to Fitz at a point when, he was working within the football and be like, I got to resign. I got to do this. Like, we have to have someone step up and do this. And it's like, I mean, all who listen for a long time, Jacob Schmidt's a friend of the pod. We've had him on, I think, 3 times, including once way back when he was a player or had just finished his playing career. But we just have so much respect for him. Like, it's so easy to forget. I mean, not forget, but just it was only a couple years ago, and how quickly the landscape's changing, but how much it felt like he was on an island. It felt like he's doing this because we have to have someone do this. And to your point, it's like, it's not like Northwestern Athletic Department could or particularly wanted to, in certain places, rally behind him. And he was just trying to make this happen at a time where, I mean, we had him on several times over the course of this, and it's like the ground shifting beneath his feet on like a month by month basis. And you're trying to hit a target that keeps moving. And it's like, oh, what do the laws say we can do now? Oh, they changed again. Oh, now we have to like adjust to this. And I think I guess I want to make sure, because I think maybe 10, 15, 20 years from now, we're going to look back at this like blip where it was like, NIL collectives were the only way you could make money for this tiny window of time. And then we moved on to something that hopefully is more stable and lasts longer. And it just needs to never be forgotten that during that period of time, Jacob Schmidt was the guy who made it happen. He was the guy who was like, I'll do it. Someone's got to do it. I'll do it. I'll make it happen. And then really built it into something. And again, like we don't have any inside information on this. I really hope, I think everyone wants to see him find a job in Northwestern athletics. If not, he needs to go wherever he's going to go with every recommendation in the world, because like Northwestern Nation is and should be incredibly grateful to what he did.
Yeah, 100%. And like, I hope that he's able to come back and work for the athletic department. If nothing else, all of everything he's learned through building True NU from nothing to where it is now, that institutional knowledge, the athletic department would be foolish if they didn't keep him somehow involved with that. And
right. And again, it's like, even now I'm reading stuff that's like, no, like NIL collectives can exist and there can be like NIL collective money,
knows.
And it's still,
no one has any clue what's going on.
And this is the kind of thing, like, I would almost read that, because I think this notion that because we've now established whatever it is, $20 million or X, that the athletic departments, that no money will be spent over the top of that. Of course, money's going to be spent over the top of that.
No money is going to be spent.
Yeah, right. I mean, like, you think at your blue blood programs, they're not going to do everything that they can. But I think regardless, this could be just the decision that Northwestern's made. That it's like, look, this is like the time. We can fold this all into the athletic department now. Let's fold it all into the athletic department. If that's true, yeah, there's no better person to lead this in any way, shape, or form than Jacob Schmidt. And we would love to see that happen. I think on a related note, obviously Braun fielded a bunch of questions about this at media days and was really talking that, I don't think they were releasing specific numbers, but very much being like, yeah, under this new settlement with the new amount of money athletic departments are allowed to dole out, we are going to be extremely competitive in this space. And again, it's like, it's really easy now to hear David Braun and see like a True NU kind of going out with his head held high and be like, yeah, now this is, there's not a need for us anymore because the athletic department happily is folding this into it, and being like, okay, Braun is super into this. And they have a new AD like Mark Jackson, who he's done several interviews, including with the Big Ten Network, where he's like, oh yeah, like we are all in on this and X, Y, and Z. And then to think like, but a scant few years ago, none of this was like this at all. There was nothing but pushback from the university. There was like, we were, right, as Sam said earlier, dragged kicking and screaming into this space. And Jacob Schmidt was one of those key people that helped shift that landscape at Northwestern. So yeah, we are nothing but gratitude.
It would have been so easy for Northwestern to just be left in the dust with the rest of the Big Ten, far and away in front of things and, being on the forefront of NIL. But because of, the work that Jacob did, we're right in the mix, and we're in there and being able to compete in as you say, the NIL space. So
right. And now, I mean, and again, it gives you the ability for the stars to align, where again, when everyone's pulling in the same direction, which all seems really, really logical and straightforward. And yet at Northwestern, you can go back 50, 60, 70 years, and this has rarely, if ever, been the case.
So true.
But when everyone's pulling in the same direction with the same goals, and then you can, everyone's like, yeah, you know what? We are going to be a really big player in the NIL space. We do expect to spend really competitively. We do have this massive stadium about to open. And suddenly there's a lot of great things you can talk about, and Braun, listening to him. And again, it's like, there's no crystal ball. And again, this is a guy coming off a 4-8 season, but you listen to Braun talk, and Braun is like, our goals are like not a winning season. Our goals are so much more than that. And very much being like, I know how much money we're investing in this new landscape. I know we have this $850 million stadium that's coming down the pipe. Like, as far as I'm concerned, we're competing with everyone for everything, because like, look at all this stuff that we have. And it's like, yeah, you know what? And you have that lakefront facility, and you do have all these things. It's like, yeah, we should be a player in all this. It does make sense. So yeah, definitely positive feels coming out of media day.
For sure. Anything else to talk about? I mean, I think we've hit on all of the big news and notes. Obviously, we're gonna push stop on this, and then like
I was as we said on
will
Twitter,
join the Big Ten all of a sudden.
Right, Arch Manning is going to transfer to Western Illinois, and that pod is then going to be outdated. It's all locking into place. I mean, we were joking that it's like Retzlaff left BYU, so now Nika Iamaleava is going to decide he wants to go to BYU, and then we're going to have to redo the UCLA pod too. I think it's all. And
Brendan Sullivan is going to transfer to Louisiana Monroe.
ULM.
Yeah,
yeah.
Like I said,
that
revenge tour can continue.
That was another piece, and I know some people, because he went to Iowa and because we've played against Sullivan now, and we're looking at playing against a Sullivan team again, like. Brendan Sullivan made massive contributions to a very special Northwestern football season, and none of us are ever going to forget that. And in that sense, I want nothing but the best for this guy. I don't want him playing good football when he's playing against Northwestern, but I want the best for him, and this guy cannot win. This is the worst thing that could have happened. Retzlaff, all of Sullivan's strengths are Retzlaff's strengths, and Retzlaff has them in spades. And that, coupled with the fact that, as Scuzz had mapped out, like, Sullivan probably wasn't going to be the starter anyway. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, this guy, get him, even if it's like to a MAC team or whatever, I'm just, get Sully to a place where he can just start some football games. Because it seems like, whatever he, just when he's building a little momentum at Iowa, he gets hurt, and then he transfers here. And I think Gradowski comes in, he transfers, and finds himself buried on the depth chart once again. So, nothing but love for Sully, for what he helped our team accomplish in 2023. And yeah, maybe he could do better. It just, we joke. I mean, literally all he has to do is just walk down the street to Louisiana Monroe, and then he, can still get his Northwestern fix in. But mainly I just want to see him play. Yeah. So if he could pull the ripcord right now, but it's probably too late. But I don't know. We'll see.
So we will be back next week with our previews of Oregon and UCLA. So be
knock wood, everything stays nice and current.
Exactly. So yeah, be on the lookout for those next week. And then our previews continue as we continue through the Northwestern season. We'll go ahead and leave it there for tonight. Head to our website, westlawpirates.com, where you can leave comments and questions. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, YouTube, at Westlaw Pirates. And you can always email us, westlawpirates@gmail.com. Tune in next time as we give our visceral and statistical views on Northwestern athletics. Look for us in the West Tech lot of Martin Stadium, right across the street from Tech, flying the red pirate flag, because we give no quarter, especially the fourth. For John Lacombe, I'm Sam Walter. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time.